In the last section, we spoke about how we're going to source our data for list of albums. We're going to make an AJAX request to that Heroku app endpoint to grab a list of objects where each object represents one album. That list of data will be pushed into this new component that we're going to call album list. So album list is going to be responsible for fetching that album data. And then once it fetches that data, it will display one album detail component per album that got fetched. The album list will be a child of the app component, and the app component also right now is showing the header component as well. So I hope this is starting to give you a little bit better sense of how we start to nest and put views together, or components, to form a larger, more complex application. So let's get started on our album list component. The first thing we're going to do is make this component. We're going to put some dummy text in there, and then we're going to make sure that it renders inside the app. After we put together some initial scaffold for the album list component, we're going to work on fetching our album data from that remote endpoint. So let's get to it. Inside of my project directory, I'm going to make a new file to house my album list component. Remember, one file, one component. So in my components directory, I'll make a new file called albumlist.js. Take note here that I'm using capitals for album and list. I made a little bit of mistake in the past when I used a lowercase header here. So moving forward, we're going to have capital letters for all of our component names. If you want to go back and rename the header with the capital H, certainly go for it. I advocate that capitalization scheme, but I'm not going to take the time right now to go back and fix it up. So here's our album list. So inside of here, we'll put in some boilerplate and then just show it inside of our app component and call it good. So at the very top, we'll do the two imports for what we need with every component we place. First, we will import React from React. Then we will import, and I'm going to just assume right now that I'm going to want a view tag and a text tag from React Native. Next, we will create our actual component. So const album list, and this is going to return some amount of JSX. So for right now, I'm just going to return a view tag, and inside of this view tag, I'm going to place some text that just says album list. Just something to get us started. Finally, at the bottom of the file, I'll export this component that we just created. So export default album list. This right here, I'm going to refer to as our component boilerplate. It's something that we're going to be typing out again and again and again. I guarantee you are going to get this boilerplate down pat by the time you get through the end of this course, because we're going to make probably, I don't know, a dozen or two different components. So we're going to be writing this out a lot. All right, so here's our album list component. We now want to show it inside of the app component. So I'll save this file, and then we're going to flip back over to the file that has our app component, which for me is index iOS.js. If you are on Android or developing for Android, you will open up index Android.js. We will then import that component at the top. So we will import album list from, and then remember, because this is a component that we wrote, it's something that we authored, we are going to give the relative path to that file. So starting in the current directory, which I represent with a /, go into the source directory, go into components, and then get album list. So into source, components, album list. Because this is a JavaScript file ending in .js, I do not have to put on the file extension here. So I do not have to put on the .js. I can, but I don't have to. Okay, so here's our album list. We now want to show it within the app component. Here's a little trick about JSX, or maybe trick isn't the correct word. Maybe I need to say requirement. For any component that we create, we must return a single top-level JSX tag. So I can't just add in album list like so. This is not valid JSX because I'm trying to return two siblings at one time. This would be completely equivalent to returning something like, return 1 and then return 2. It doesn't work out. You're just going to try to return 1 and you're never going to reach return statement 2. That's more or less what is happening here with the JSX. So whenever I have multiple tags I want to return at the same time, I will instead wrap them with a single view tag. That means I will satisfy my requirement of returning a single top-level tag. So let's do that. Up at the top, at my import statement from React Native, I'm going to add in a view tag. And now I'm going to wrap my header and my album list with a single view tag. So I'll place a view, and then I'll close the view off, like so. Cool, so I'm returning one top-level tag that contains two components inside of it. Like I said previously, view tags are without a doubt the Swiss Army knife of tags. We use them for all different types of utility, and over time you'll definitely get more used to, or at least more familiar with the different uses of the view tag. All right, let's test this out in our simulator just to make sure that we didn't make a typo or anything. I'll pop open my simulator, I'll refresh, and there's my album list text right here. Okay, so off to a great start. Let's continue in the next section and work on making an AJAX request from our album list component to fetch our list of items.